Welcome back to Morning Drive. We take a look back. This date in history, 1942, his last tournament before joining the U.S. Navy. Sam Snead won his first major title by defeating Jim Ternessa in the final of the PGA Championship, which was in match play. Ternessa, he also served in the U.S. Army. Snead returned to golf in 1944, and of course he went on to win those 82 official career PGA Tour titles. Now, Matt, there have been a number of players through time, obviously, whose careers have been impacted by military service. Give one to shine a light on.
I think an amazing story, Gary, is Tommy Armour, the Silver Scot. Yeah, a three-time major champion. He won the 1927 U.S. Open, the 1930 PGA, the 1931 Open at Carnoustie, which was huge for him. That was the one that he always longed for. And he was Scotland's native son coming back from the United States to win there. All told, he won 25 times on tour. But his backstory is absolutely amazing. He was a staff major in the Tank Corps in the First World War. He was a machine gunner. He suffered a German mustard gas attack in France in 1917. He lost vision in both eyes. He couldn't walk. Metal plates were fitted in his head, his arms, and his legs. He slowly recovered, never getting sight back, incidentally, in his right eye. And the doctor told him, you need to go out and get exercise. So he took up golf in earnest, obviously had some natural ability and talent at it. Somewhere along the way, as are the great stories of life, right? He bumps into Walter Hagen, who said, why don't you come to the United States and become one of the great teachers there, and you can compete as well. Compete he did, teach he did, and the rest of the story is legend for the raging glory that was to follow. But how he got there, Jaime, I think is absolutely fascinating.
Amazing story. And we didn't mention the McGregor Silver Scott Woods and Irons that were such classics. Johnny Miller said those irons were magical. He wishes he still had them. I want to go to guys who were actually helped by the military, and two in particular, Tony Lima and Lee Trevino. Both guys, of course, grew up very poor. Tony lost his father when he was 3 years old in Oakland, California. Caddied a little bit. He showed some aptitude at golf, but certainly without any real structure. And he joined the Marines at 19 years old. And it just changed his life in terms of the discipline that he started to apply to himself. He served in Korea. When he got out, he really did have some real plan for golf and built himself into a guy who actually won the 1964 British Open at St. Andrews, which is storybook. Of course, he was killed tragically in a plane crash in 1966. Lee Trevino, just his story is mythological in the first place, but he really was kind of lost, even though he had shown some aptitude for golf and good at sports, but didn't have any real direction. And at 17, when he graduated, didn't even graduate from high school, but he joined the Marines at 17. He was stationed in Okinawa. He was also a machine gunner like Tommy Armour. Just great discipline that he was looking for in his life that he found with the Marines. And then he did start to play some more golf with the military teams and met Orville Moody, who at that time in Asia was just dominating golf in the military, and no one knew about him. Lee Trevino could not beat him. Orville Moody, he said, should have turned pro right then. He would have been a great golfer. He waited 8 years, as it turned out. But anyway, Lee always talks about what an incredible coincidence. Those two guys from very, hard scrabble backgrounds would win back-to-back U.S. Opens in 1968 and 1969.
Jaime, very quickly, and it's a healthy exercise that requires being subjective, but do you think there's one player, if you had to pick one, whose raw data, performance, production affected most significantly in the absence of being able to play because of military service?
Well, I often think about Arnold Palmer's career. Arnold went to Wake Forest, and then he left when his great friend Buddy Worsham was killed tragically in a car accident, and joined the Coast Guard for almost 3 years. That was right in his prime, at least development formative years, at 22 to 24 years old. But Arnold would say later that it helped him. Even though he lost probably a little bit of momentum in his golf game, he gained a lot of maturity. And when he came out, he won the U.S. Amateur in 1954, and then he was off. But he got quite a late start for someone who's an all-time great player, really not winning with any consistency until his mid-20s. And, the military was a pause, but one that helped him, I guess, in the long run. When
you look at just the major championships that were not contested during the war years in the 40s. There were a total of 14 majors. The PGA, there was only one year they didn't play that, but the Open Championship from 40 to 45, it wasn't contested. I want to go back to Sam Snead, having won that first major in 42. And also think about somebody who was a contemporary in professional sports at that time. I think Snead and Ted Williams, two of the most natural performers in their respective sports. Ted Williams lost 3 full seasons of Major League Baseball. He won the Triple Crown the year before he left to serve in the military and missed 3 full seasons. And think about Snead. Think about the wins he might have accrued beyond the 82 official wins. The 7 majors, would it have been 9, maybe 10? And of course, Matt, when you think about Ben Hogan, who was just hitting his stride and won his first major in 46, those 9, is it 11? The gravity of if you add 1 or 2 additional majors to players who are already icons to what their profiles would be is significant.
Yeah, I think when you mention Ben Hogan, it is very significant because he was just getting his stride as the war years kicked in. So not only did he lose that stanza, but then what happened after his near-fatal car accident, and yet Ben Hogan is still 4th all-time, tied with Gary Player on the list of major championships, won with 9. It is amazing. It's a fascinating conversation to have, this discussion of what if.
You can add names like Ralph Goodall, Lawson Little, Craig Wood, Jimmy Demerit, players who were deprived, those playing opportunities, those major championship starts as well, what their careers might have looked like.